I keep on talking to Sushil, my co-founder, and he said that we have never met these guys. We have never seen these guys. These guys are not in India, and they're paying us $10,000 for our software, which we feel is not even ready for international market. I mean, like that is something I need to see another proof. Right? This might be an exception. There was another proof. We got another proof, and now we have near about close to around 100K coming from international market. We're doubling down on that.
Hi everyone, welcome to SaaSBoomi Behind the Scenes podcast marketing series. And I have a very interesting guest, a fellow GrowthX founder, Abhishek Ballabh, a CEO and co-founder of ExtraaEdge. And I have my partner in crime, Varun. Let's kick it off.
Welcome, folks. Good to have you here again. Abhi, good to have you here. This is going to be an exciting episode because we know a lot about Abhi being part of the SGx program of SaaSBoomi. We've seen his evolution. We've seen his growth. And there are a lot of interesting stories to share. Over to you, Abhi. Would love to have an intro.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. Super excited. Have been listening to a few of your episodes, and as an audience, so it's really exciting to be as a part here as a speaker. My name is Abhi. I'm the co-founder and CEO of ExtraaEdge. ExtraaEdge is a category leader in education marketing software. In a simple way, we are a sales operating system built for education industry, and being a vertical SaaS MarTech player, we are trying to create this category, especially with the tailwinds of the education being the go-to-market in education becoming digital after pandemic, where course selling has become predominantly digital, and that's has given us a lot of boost post-pandemic, where we are able to drive sales acceleration in this particular industry. So stoked to be here, excited, and look forward to sharing a lot of stories. A bit background about me: come from a data science and machine learning background. Worked in HSBC for a few years, then came back to India. Spent a lot of time in London while I was at HSBC. Was a quant there. The guy you see in Big Shot, who's the guy who's a quant guy, right? So I was a quant guy sitting the guy and crunching numbers, and came back to India, joined a very interesting SaaS company called Mintical as a product manager and early employee. Learned a lot of things there. They are now a big SaaS unicorn. And then started ExtraaEdge with my partner in crime, Sushil. So I'm a programmer turned big data guy turned marketer, so excited to share some of the stories.
Before we head into the episode, Abhi, I have a personal question to ask. Do you have like a secret program which is delivering CAGR returns in excess of 30%? Using your quant skills? Is that there? Does it exist?
I think 18% CAGR is good. If you think about that, I mean, that has compounded benefits. So anything you're doing, if it's a 18% CAGR, you're good. I think
so. You have a secret program which is delivering 18% CAGR?
He's deflecting the question.
I would not say I have secret program, but I definitely have a program to better my knowledge and understanding every year about some of the things. And so that's how I measure and quantify learning about some topics every year.
So for folks in the audience, this is a side of Abhi that I did not know, and I'm probably going to drop him a message after this, trying to understand. I knew he was like one of the early employees in Mintical. I didn't know he had like a quant background. So now I'm going to be talking about this so-called secret program and his secrets on 18% CAGR that he's likely delivering. Right. So Abhi, we begin these episodes by trying to understand the organization. Because it's all about behind the scenes and marketing. What were the stories and jugaad and the secrets that led to the success of the organization to where it is now? I think ExtraaEdge is primarily focused on India. Is that correct?
Our primary revenue comes from India. That's right.
Primary revenue, and it's now growing outside India now as well. So you're kind of like branching out. So would love to know about the marketing org chart evolution. A lot of times what we've seen is people just don't understand that the marketing function exists. So if you were to rewind back to your early days, what was marketing like for ExtraaEdge? What was the first marketing hire? What existed before marketing was established formally? And how has the organization evolved to now? If you could also visually and verbally explain, so visually as in just try to explain what the org chart looks like today, who reports to whom, that would also be helpful.
Yeah, sure, Varun. So I think a really good question, and I think like Jessica Livingstone, Paul Graham's wife in Y Combinator, talks about is that when you're building a company in the early days, right, the founder goes out and does sales. So marketing should not be misconstrued as an optionality to sales in the early stage of your startup. I think that's where a lot of people get it wrong, that it's all marketing, marketing. I think the understanding of the customer, even if you're selling at a SMB level or a enterprise level, that too gets evolved over a period of time. But selling the first 50 odd logos, 40 odd logos to understand who your target customer is more of a outbound, so like a lot of terminology around getting out of the building, right? You get out of the building and talk to your customer. And so that really is very, very important in the early stage of your startup journey.
Nihito. Do you know what Nihito means?
No.
Nothing important happens in the office.
Nice.
Correct, correct. And it's all hindsight. I never read Jessica Willingstone in the first couple of years of my life. I read it later. So these are all hindsight things. So we only knew that, hey, look, we are product guys. We build product, and we need to go out and sell the product, right? And that's what we did.
Pure
So
hustle.
hustle. I mean hustle, right? We still hustle a lot, and that's one of the culture in the company. So first 2 years, Varun and Arvind, zero marketing. Let me put it out bluntly: zero marketing, zero marketing.
There is also marketing. You are trying to understand the persona.
Correct. But then, the marketing that we talk about, where you employ tactics like AdWords, website, organic SEO keywords,
Yeah.
we were not even privy to it. We heard about it, that it's some kind of magic, some kind of people who know these things do. We don't know these. We go and sell these things. So that was the evolution, Varun. The org chart before, the first couple of years was only three salespeople reporting to me. I was a sales head. Sushil used to run my co-founder product engineering and customer success. That's about it. And we need to get more logos, and so on and so forth. But then something very interesting happened in our life, and that interesting that had happened in life was SaaSBoomi's Growth X program. You know,
Before you move on,
yeah.
I'm curious to know what was your perception of marketing around that time. What did you think marketing was?
I think for me, the perception of marketing is that a marketing helps your customer comes to you, whereas in sales you go to your customer in a very simple way. That was a very Desi version of what sales and marketing is. That you when you go back to the customer and pitch him, or you are positioning yourself in that sales, and when the customer comes to you because they have discovered you some way, then that's marketing. I mean, that was my basic understanding of marketing. And
And why were you not doing that in the 2 years? Like, why did you not want the customers to come over to you?
right. So we are like myopic by our background, Varun. So I came from HSBC, where we used to do enterprise sales, and then I went to Mindtickle, which was an enterprise SaaS company, and they were in the so
Which is
my
also into sales.
it was so HSBC was like a very, very big company, so they used to do a lot of shit where I have not even know what to do, and it was a very small spoke in the wheel there. And in Mindtickle, it was early days, so it was founder doing sales, founder led sales. So I only knew Krishna and Mohit to do sales. So exactly, I replicated the same model in ExtraaEdge, where me and Sushil were both doing sales. And by the way, it helped. So we're two co-founders. We both used to do sales, and we have all closed deals in the early stage. Now that created the backdrop of a very deep understanding of who our customer is and who the customer is not. Uh, Sans and Post SGx, with the mentorship of a lot of people there, and especially I would like to name the co-founder of Exotel and Amio, Sachin Bhatia, who was my mentor, and he was instrumental in helping us build uh, kind of a sales function and also a marketing function. And that's where a lot of magic started to happen, where I started to deeply think about that marketing is a separate branch altogether, and that needs to be built. And guess what? At that time, pandemic hit us, and that was a very phenomenal moment for our education industry, because the first time GTM started to become digital, and you realized it's think about education, right? Education is a more ATL BTL event driven industry, where they conduct these outbound things and attract kids, and we have all been consumers there. And suddenly, they were shut down. So there they were defaulted towards go to market being digital, probably for the first time in 100 years, right? And for a Stanford to probably a coaching institute in Pitampura, all put together, right? They all went
Everyone was forced.
first.
Yeah.
And what they realize, the second order effect, is that if your go to market has become digital, you require go to market tools to drive that acceleration. and ExtraaEdge is right the go-to-market tool. And that's where we saw a lot of growth and demanding pent up. People start to call from Imphal, Guwahati, Indore, Chennai, that we need this kind of software. And we were like puzzled, what's this happening? And then growth has happened, and Sachin said, start developing that structure. And today, as we stand, Varun, we have a head of demand generation who heads the SDR and ABM functions. There are 7 guys who report to him. There's a lead of marketing who there are 4 people who report to him. The 4 people are from SEO, Google AdWords, account based marketing, and there's a website graphic design guy who all report to him. And one of the things that we also learned in SGx is that it's good to have specialist when it comes to marketing, because marketing is a very specialist function. You really need to have a guy who really understands Google AdWords. He needs to understand the difference between phrase match and broad match, and he needs to spend money judiciously and optimize. And one of the most important things about marketing, I have realized, is that marketing is an science, like an experiment that needs to be run every week. And you need to keep on looking at results, because it surprises you in a very serendipitous way most of the times.
Yeah.
So doing that needs to have specialized people. So an AVP of demand gen and marketing sits under that. There's a lead of marketing sits, and there are SDR functions who report to that guy. And there are a lot of SEO, AdWords, brand function we have built. There are 3 people in brand who look after LinkedIn and after our posts on Instagram for our audiences. They all report to the marketing and the DG function. So there's a whole DG function that we have created in our
So I'm
company.
going to ask you questions on the SDR reporting, but before we move on, for folks in the audience, we've talked about GrowthX and SGx. Um, these are both of them are the same program, which is started pro bono as part of SaaSBoomi, where experienced folks who are running or who have done great work running a company mentor and help new upcoming founders. So you can read more about that online if you search for SaaSBoomi SGx. So that's a quick background, and just in case you don't know what SGx and GrowthX is.
So Varun, I would like to say something. So SGX, for all the Twitter and Instagram lovers, is like a growth Vipassana for for all of you, right? Go for this 3 month of growth Vipassana, and your entire thought process of how to build a company will change. So
Yeah.
that's what
It's all,
from.
and it's all pro bono. It's unlike any of the accelerators or anything that you'd come across where an equity exchange is expected. This is all pro bono. No exchange is expected. A token sign up amount is given just to the initiative. Uh, uh, but moving on or moving back on the SDR reporting, these are sales SDR who are reporting in the marketing function. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, so we call this function demand generation and marketing, Varun. And there is a head of demand generation and marketing uh, who who leads 2 subdivisions. One is a DG, what we call demand generation, where there are SDRs who are sales SDRs, and there's another function called marketing, where there's a lead marketing who reports to the head of demand generation AVP, and there are guys under him. And there's a third branch, a small branch we have started lately called brand, where we have hired people who are from brand and content, who write content pieces. They report. So DG, which is like the SDR, the marketing and the brand, they all report to the AVP of demand generation and marketing.
This is this is one of those things that we keep talking about, right, Arvind? And I am strongly in the camp where I feel that outbound STRs, I don't know where you are, and I would love to hear your opinion on this, Arvind, but I feel that outbound STRs should report to marketing. And the reason for that is personally being on the other side of this as a consumer. When I used to get these sales spam emails, so to speak,
Yeah.
I would become more aware of the category just from like 3 liners, because they would force me to search. Maybe there was a hook in the email, it would force me to search. I'd maybe land on G2 page. I'd see who the alternative competitors are. And then positioning was carved out in my brain. Now, I might not use that immediately, but there was this effect of driving awareness through these campaigns, which is why I feel that outbound SDR should report to marketing. Arvind, what are your thoughts on this?
I completely agree where you're coming from. So, like, see, basically, it's lead gen. You are creating opportunities, right? So, technically, it should fall under marketing. But I tried the same thing, and we had a debate in our organization about it. Is also the problem is how there are other side of the coin where uh, teaching them, training them how to talk to customers. That part where sales is natural at it, like how to follow up, how to set. and especially managing them. So marketing usually, right, like even in my org, they tend to work in the morning because their job is bidding and doing, and sales usually work in the night. So SDR, I wanted someone to manage. So I was torn between these two, like execution versus logic. Lead gen should come under marketing, but execution, it's easier for sales to manage it. So I'm torn. That's my answer.
You don't. Just maybe this might be an interesting framework for you. Is you have to remember that as part of a prospect's journey towards becoming a customer and eventually an advocate, in outbound, their first touch point of communication is that email that gets sent out. So your entire exercise of positioning or driving in a certain wedge into the mind of the consumer is from that email. That's your first touch point. Now, do you want that first touch point to be an aggressive sales led, or do you want to experiment on the wording
So
or
what
run
I
a
said
certain level of
is
cadence?
the complete cadence drip marketing content comes from marketing team. We have a centralized content team, so that is reviewed and written by marketing anyway. That what content they use is centralized, but this is more of follow-ups, calls, cold outbound calls.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So on the brand side, Abhi, you mentioned that you have a brand marketing function, which at least from what I kind of could understand was partly content, because my understanding of brand marketing is generally with mature companies. So what does brand marketing do in Extra Edge?
Uh, so before I answer that question, one other thing, Varun, that I'll mention about this outbound reporting to it, I think we looked at in a very tactical way. We looked at that, can there be a cohesion between our AVP of sales and our AVP of marketing, right? Because we are a small team and we cannot have debates and, kind of deliberation on attribution and things like that. We're too small a company to do that. And what we used to do earlier is that the SDR function used to report to my AVP of sales, which turned out to be disaster because she was not able to handle both. She cannot do a sales review at the same time look at what SDR are doing. And when we separated it out, right, I have seen there is a very healthy camaraderie developed between the AVP of demand generation and AVP of sales, who see each other not only as a supplier and a consumer, but as kind of counterparts in the overall term, what we call growth. So there's growth function, right? And they both are part of the growth function. So I think that's like that's the evolution that happened in Extra Edge. That I just wanted to.
SDR converts it into an opportunity. It's been passed down to the regular AEs, or you have a separate.
Correct. There's a
Okay.
regular. It passed to the regular AE. Yeah.
Arvind,
Yeah.
this is where I think there's another argument in favor of SDRs reporting to marketing. Is your sales is just focused on closing. So your responsibility right up to the level of VP is just closures. It's not meetings, it's not leads, it's not the quality of content, it's pure closures. And I have seen this at my time at Kayako as well, where the ball would get dropped often, or there would be questions on comp for the meetings which would not close, and there was constant deviation, because as a business leader I would have to question my VP of sales on the quality of leads, and why when the SDR is being compensated for a certain meeting, and why that meeting eventually doesn't turn to closure. So there was a constant tension on the discussion where it would deviate to the quality of leads, and then maybe closure was an issue. And just pinning the responsibility of closure, I feel, brings more accountability on sales. And sales, in my opinion, nothing against sales folks, they have this greatest weapon, what I call deflection bombs. So everything, the reason it doesn't like the sale didn't happen is because of reason XYZ, and these deflection bombs will be thrown at you at the leadership level often, and it's your job to kind of like unwind them and see why this isn't happening, because you will never get the true reason why the sale didn't happen. There's always a deflection grenade which is thrown in your way, and then it confuses you as a business leader. Maybe it's my product which is a problem, maybe it's the competitor which is a problem, maybe my competitor is spending more on marketing which is a problem. It's never the salesperson problem.
Yeah.
And pinning that responsibility, I think, is a very important uh, you know uh, decision that needs to be taken to bring a certain level of responsibility out of sales.
Absolutely. No, I agree, Varun. And coming back to your brand question, and I would just like to kind of double click on that also. I think one of the very important things we realized, Varun and Arvind, is that we are a vertical SaaS company. And if you look at any great vertical SaaS company like a Darwin Box or a Waymo or a Zenoti, right, they have a voice, and the founder has a voice. So one of the things we started to do in the brand function, Varun, is that can founder be perceived as a thought leader in that industry or not? And I'll just give you a simple take that when we started this thought process of brand, right, me and Sushil were like normal LinkedIn founders. We had 2,000 followers, 3,000 followers, and so on and so forth. We did not even know who those guys were. Did not care, by the way, right? Today, Sushil, my co-founder, has more followers than the CEO of two of our competitors. One is a unicorn, right? And we both have more than 15,000 followers and these are education related folks in marketing, sales, counselors, and stuff like that, right? So one of the metrics that my brand marketing Niti, who comes, and by the way, this lady, Niti, she comes from a psychology background. So she's a psychologist. She comes from a psychology background from Ferguson College, and she has brought in a lot of psychology to our brand. That if the founder is perceived in a particular way, then that's how the organization is started to perceive. And what we did, Varun, is that we focused on founder branding and content, and then we nailed down on what topics we want to talk about. But prior to deciding that, we went back and started to understand what kind of brand are we. So we did what we call a branding and positioning exercise, and we took help of an agency, and we came up with a brand flavor, and we came across as Yoda. So Yoda, the iconic guy he's very thoughtful, he's very sharp, but he's at the same time action oriented. So he'll give this advice, but he's not a guru, he's a coach. So our whole personality is of a Yoda, and everybody knows in our company that we are like a Yoda. So who's a Yoda? Yoda talks about thoughtfulness, about deep understanding of the area where he's in, and he gives action oriented messages and things like that. And if you look at any of my LinkedIn and messages and campaigns, it's around talent, brand, education, marketing, culture. This is what we espouse to be known in the market about it. And that's what a brand started to do on a regular basis, and that's the function of brand marketing today, to from the mouthpiece of the founder, talk about this education marketing as an industry, talk about why this industry is changing, and talk about what the what our stakeholders, our customers should do in order to move from the old age they used to live in to the new age, and how ExtraaEdge can act as a catalyst to do that. That's the core function of the brand marketing, where content, Instagram post or LinkedIn post, carousels and all those things are the deliverables out of it. But they fully focus on establishing us as thoughtful leaders who are helping education brands to get to product market fit.
Abhi,
Your archetype, you want to be like a visionary, educating the market, be a thought leader.
Brilliant. Absolutely. That's a brilliant word. I mean, missionary is a word we quote more often in our company. So we want to be known as missionaries in this particular change that is happening, from an old way of selling in education to a new way of selling in education.
you know, when I was running Kayako, I was very nervous about showcasing myself as the face of the company. And in hindsight, after getting over the fear of facing the camera or being confident enough to bring myself out and talk about my opinion, it was a big mistake to not make myself as a face of the company. And I've realized in marketing, people want to see the humans uh, behind the brand. And a lot of folks have this fear of coming across maybe camera shy, maybe they feel that their opinion would not be validated or not respected. But I think that needs to be gotten over with, because this is one of the most important hacks that you can have in your organization. If there's a visible human behind the brand, people call it the founder brand. I don't think founder brand reflects that. I think that's more personal towards the goal of the founder. I think the company itself needs a human, that yes, there's this person behind this company. And if you see Gainsight, there's Nick Mehta. If you see Freshworks, there's Girish. So almost all these, or SuperOps, and there's Arvind, and he does this founder brand marketing really well. You should check out Stories by Arvind. It's an interesting initiative that he's done. But I feel this is one of those unused weapons, for lack of fear of facing the camera, or maybe whatever the fear may be, that needs to be utilized, and people really need to double down on this. And this is actually a moat because a lot of your other competitors might have that fear, right? So if you come across as more personal, if you come across as more visible, then you would be respected more, where people will associate, okay, so it's Extra Edge, I know it's Abhi, I've heard of your founder talk about this, I've seen that webinar where your founder was talking about this specific topic related to the industry. So you can't have thought leadership unless there's a visible human behind the brand. That's my opinion.
And you're very right, Varun. And I'll just mention one thing. I think a lot of founders misconstrue introversion to a lack of being visible. For every a Steve Jobs, or probably a Jeff Bezos, or even Girish, right? They come across as confident, extroverted individuals. But there's also Ben Silverman of Pinterest, if you've heard him, right? He's a very soft spoken guy, very calm. Well, even Arvind, as a matter of fact, he comes across as a very soft spoken guy. When you speak to him, he's very passionate. But I think even the introverts who have not spoken are ever in their life and are calm and calculated, even have to make a point, right? I need not be aggressive about it. I could be speaking like a normal person and make a very, very strong point. I think that needs to be broken, that you need not be a great elocutor or an articulator of words or an extrovert to be a good a guy on the camera. You could just be a normal introvert
Exactly.
and just articulate your
That's exactly
I
what I
think.
was about to say, Abhi.
Yeah,
Like what
yeah,
you kind
yeah.
of stole my words. See, I think a lot of times what people, it's a cultural thing, is what I realized. Everybody can't be a great orator, don't have to empower people and be the thought leader by giving gyan. What we should do is we are sharing a journey. We are learning a lot. We just basically are sharing that, which in turn you become a thought leader. So you don't have to be a great speaker, or like it's about sharing, and you need to have your own style. Not everybody can be Steve Jobs, or not everybody can uh, be that like you need to figure out what is your style.
So, Abhi, on the SGX, you're like, before we started with this episode, you talked about the pre SGX and post SGX marketing transformation. Would love to know more about that. Can you elaborate, like, how did the company transform before that and after that, and why? What changed?
Okay, great. So I would say four things. First of all, you know, changing the mindset of a co-founder who has only seen sales as the only weapon of growth. I think that was very, very important. And a lot of times founders are executioners, so they only believe what they see, and they don't believe a story. And that's the case also with my co-founder Sushil. And he asked me the question that, will this work? And I can only believe when it works. So you go ahead and try, but it has to lead to measurable outcomes in terms of revenue if you go from a marketing standpoint. So I think change of founder mindset and alignment, that this needs to change over a period of time, was very, very important. And having the buy-in from the founder. And second, I would say, is that educating yourself as a co-founder about the tenets of marketing, that what's the difference between brand and marketing. Is SEO marketing, or is positioning marketing? What is an ICP? What's a value proposition? Canvas and things like that. So I started to myself become a student, trying to understand marketing from first principles, reading, learning from people at SGx who have been marketers as founders, and learn from them. A third thing that happened is that bringing leadership in my marketing team, hiring a senior guy who can start looking at the operations and executing the small bits and items, and hiring specific leaders, or what I call direct responsibility individuals, DRIs, or who have the specific OKRs about, say, an AdWord or a SEO or a ABM. I started to think about hiring those kind of people and bringing them in. So these are the four things that happened, Varun. And the transformation pre SGX and post SGX is, like, I don't even believe it that has happened, because when we joined in, we were subpar, near about, give or take, 300 odd K, and today, we are near about close into 1.5 million. So I think that's the journey, that 5x we have moved, and it's just been 2.5 years, right? So and that would have not never been happening if we were continuing to do sales. So did we plan that? Did we orchestrate that in the hindsight? Of course, no. I mean, it happened it because we were at the right place at the right time. We knew that we need to change, and pandemic also pushed us. And SGX happened to us at the metamorphosis of pandemic, where the education selling was changing, and we also were stuck at home, where we're not going out and selling. And it really happened at the very, very correct time. And there were so many great moments of SGX, Varun, and I will highly recommend the listeners who are SaaS founders to apply for SGx. It's one of the greatest thing that has happened to us in our growth journey, is that small suggestions from the mentors are phenomenal in impact. And I'll give you one small anecdote. Sachin, one of my mentors, told me about compensation of sales guys, and we were going after that Mark Roberts HubSpot formula of uh, 0 to 4x 4x to 8x, this percentage. And even my co-founder got confused at the end of the day. That is so complex, I also don't understand, and he was betting that you will also not understand after 5 days. And then finally, Sachin said and told that, look, I mean, give X percentage on every win. That's it. And till date we run that same thing. And the year we started, my all A's met their quota. That's it. I
because
mean, they were.
the win was more real for them. But you mentioned DRIs. I'm slightly going off topic because I want the audience to understand this concept as well. DRIs comes in from Apple, right? So directly responsible individuals. It's a Steve Jobs esque concept
Yeah.
where, especially during the early days, we tend to have more generalist where the roles kind of like fairly well shared,
Hmm.
or deep, one person's probably dealing with three or four goals at the
Yep.
same time and juggling with three or four balls. Uh, and this tends to kind of continue even as the organization is scaling. And that's where most of the management frustration comes in from, where you don't have specialists for these specialist roles. So the accountability tends to drop, and there are X or Y reasons why a certain outcome was not achieved. So that's why
Yeah.
DRIs or directly responsible individuals are so very important beyond, in my opinion, at least, uh, the moment you go beyond 15 people, you need to start bringing certain level of specialism into the organization. Otherwise, you will be frustrated, not know why the outcomes are not being achieved, but just be frustrated generally because you feel that there's no traction, there's no accountability. There are multiple reasons why something's not working, and accountability kind of like tends to drop in the organization. Uh, Before we started this episode, you mentioned one very interesting thing around your transformation from primarily being 100% outbound to now what's the inbound figure, like what's the outbound inbound ratio now?
I think near about 75%, give or take, comes from inbound and inbound related mechanisms, and 25% is outbound.
And this is in 2.5 years.
Yes, it's
Okay, and
unbelievable.
what
Yeah.
changed?
I think we started to see the fruits of the labor, and these fruits were very sweet. And these fruits were something which were running like a flywheel or an engine, as we call it. Uh, you know, Sales we are still doing, right, but sales is the end of the funnel. It's a lower end of the funnel, fag end of the funnel. And what we saw that it was very easy, Varun. Once it started to work, right, it was so natural, it was repeatable, it was not people dependent. I mean, you are in your top 10 keywords, you're ranking probably on the first page. It's now easier to maintain that page than not be ranked on that page. So what we saw that, this is easier. This is great for a company with a small size like us, because our competitors are in the employee range of 500, 1500. We are still around 68 odd guys, right? And we did not want to build a really big company of lot of throwing body to the problem. And we saw that one of the easier way of solving for it is to become good at something that could scale without throwing body to the problem, and marketing is a very clear cut answer to that, right? So I think it happened because we did not have that much resources to hire a really good guy and lot of guys. So we were constrained by our own limitations at that point in time, but in the hindsight it was a good thing for us, because that led us to take the marketing approach. Of course, pandemic, education, GTM all contributed to that. But that change was predefined, propelled by the fact that when we started to see the few fruits of that labor, that was so easy as compared to the complete outbound that was very very hustle related. And it was nothing bad in hustle, but you cannot hustle all your life, right? It's a marathon. So you need to think about things which are replicable, which can be fine tuned over a period of time, and marketing can be fine tuned over a period of time. A salesperson can only learn till a point in time, right, where he
Yeah.
hits the ceiling. So I think those benefits, really made me and Sushil prompted to fully invest and get totally bought in towards marketing. And the results were up to speak, and we started to see the results very quickly.
The pro tip that I'd like to give you is, even when you hit scale, don't throw humans at the problem. More humans, more problems. And there's this mindset globally, but more so in India, So I wouldn't generalize and say it's a very specific Indian thing. I've seen Western companies also fall in for this trap. Western founders also fall in for this trap. But uh, we tend to boast about the size of a company by talking about the number of employees we have, and we tend to introduce it, especially when an introduction happens between two people. They tend to ask, "So how big are you?" Now, because people tend to feel shy by sharing the revenue, they talk about the headcount, which is the wrong thing. To focus on your P&L numbers, your top line and bottom line, decide on how big your company is, and founders generally need to find comfort in that fact versus talking about the number of bodies they have showing up every day. That's not the great metric to ever opt in for. And it might seem contrarian,
Yeah.
it might scare you that there are 500 people on the other side competing and you're just 60, but it might actually be a blessing, and it most likely be a blessing in disguise, and you'd realize how that tends to slow those people down, and those 500 people might be delivering the work output of 60 odd people.
No, you are absolutely right. And, I come from a quant background, right? So, if you have 10 people in your organization, then basically there are 10 into 9 by 2 connections. So there are near about 45 connections. So
Yeah.
the more the people are, it's n into n minus 1 by 2. These are the connections being made. And the more connections, more complex to manage that group dynamics. And I remember meeting a wise man and an entrepreneur who said that start measuring revenue per employee and cost per employee. That happens to be you, by the way. These were the metrics I was not even measuring, and now we measure these things in a very second order effect. That what's our efficiency in terms of revenue and cost per employee, which is very, very important to keep a check on. You know.
There's also this interesting inflection point in the history of Extra Edge, having observed you from outside. Uh, on when you decide to move outside India, in the hustling tactics that you adopted to get your first customer. Would, I think the audience would really love that story around how you kind of like engaged, did your ABM. Now it's in hindsight clearly ABM, but what was that story around how you got Bitch Pilani, Dubai, I think, as a customer?
So yeah, of course. So while we were at SGx, one of the sessions was taken by one of the experts was on account-based marketing. He introduced this concept to us that we should look at account-based marketing as focused, named account communication at the top of the funnel. So if you have around 200 named accounts, you know who you're selling to. You can personalize the message on LinkedIn and reach out to these economic buyers or decision makers or influencers.
This
And
expert, by the way, for audiences, Ankit Oberoi of Ad Pushup,
yeah, a big
amazing guy at ABM. So if you want to figure out ABM, reach out to him.
yeah, he's not only an exceptional founder, he's a very kind founder and very giving founder. He will be very patient and also answering your questions, and that's what he did for our group, the first cohort. And uh, and when we heard that, we thought of experimenting with that, and we created some few messages, and we sent one of these messages to one of the directors in Dubai, in Bits Pilani. We just experimented with some of the international, some of the Indian, just to see what happens. And it was a very personalized message based on some of the posts that he has done on education policy. And then we sent the message to him in the morning, and he replied immediately after 3 hours in Dubai time. And his reply was that I really like that you have known about me and learned about me, and I really appreciate what do you guys do. And then the communication started. I mean, and bear in mind, I did not even tell what ExtraaEdge does. I just spoke about him, that what great work he's doing, and I quoted one of his posts that he made somewhere. And then the conversation started, and in 24 hours I was routed out on an email to the head of admission, Miss Nahid Afshan. And in the next 72 hours we had a demo. And in the next, I think, around 2 weeks, we closed a deal, our first international deal in Dubai. And when I came back to SGx in one of the sessions where I showed that message and journey, and the guys were not surprised, and I was absolutely like surprised. What is this? I mean, can this even happen? And this happened, and today, they are a customer. They're a big customer, referenceable customer, and we have cross sell, upsell. And Bits Pilani is a very big, one of the oldest brand names, not in India but in Dubai also. And so I think that, Varun, gives you a lot of confidence, right?
Yeah,
So
it's
and
a
and
win.
I,
It's a win.
we won, and we never met them, and they were paying us $10,000, right? And this thing, and I keep on talking to Sushil, my co-founder, and he said that we have never met these guys, we have never seen these guys are not in India, and they're paying us $10,000 for our software, which we feel is not even ready for international market. Oh my god. I mean, like, that is something I need to see another proof. right? Another proof. This might be an exception. There was another proof. There was another proof. We got another proof, and now we have near about close to around 100K coming from international market. We're doubling down on that. We're still expanding, Varun, as we speak. We are still an Indian company, but these initial wins gives a lot of confidence to the marketing team. And I'll tell you a very also anecdote. In that sales call with Bits Pilani, I took Nikhil, who's my lead of digital marketing today, with me. He was there on every call, and after every call I used to ask him that, what do you think will happen? And he used to say, Abhishek, it will close. And I used to say that, I don't think so. I still have doubts. I think. And he said, no, Abhishek, it will close. The day it closed, we went out for a drink. I don't drink, but he drinks. I had a coffee, had a drink, and I told him that this was a good win, and he said that more will come, and more started to come. So I think these small wins, Varun, give you so much energy and so much conviction that you are onto something really, really right and big.
I think it's not just a small win in the fact that it closed, but I think it's one of the few, like it's one of the first wins where you realized that your mini brand was getting activated, that people were trusting you enough to invest and put, close in at certain high ACV, even though you hadn't met them. Because before this, it was mostly a sales led organization. You had to hustle really hard. You had to kind of like go to people's offices, wait it out, sell them the benefits, and then get money out of their pockets. And probably one of the first few moments in the journey of ExtraaEdge where uh, you got the money out of pocket just purely online, and without too as much effort as you would have had to do, like if that customer was in India, which is one of the big reasons why I'm a big fan of PLG led models focused on US market, because you wake up and there's like $20,000 in your bank account and you haven't met the customer. You don't know where they came from. You never exchanged an email, and they were happy enough to go onto your website, try the product on their own, and then put in their credit card and give the money over to you. And those are dollars, not rupees. So, but that's a personal preference. Uh, Another thing that you've done really well is your academy program, which so a couple of interesting marketing initiatives that you've done, which I have not seen a lot of companies out of India focus on. So for founder marketing was one. I think that was really, really interesting, and I really wish more people do that. And the second one is your academy piece, which is also quite fascinating. Can you touch upon that?
Yeah, of course, Varun. Lot of software is bought but not used. I'll give you. So we are in the MarTech category, and around 100 CRMs that have been bought by industries across the world, only 28% are utilized. So you imagine that this 62% is, or 72% is not even utilized. At the end of the day, and there's a reason for that, because they are complex, bloated. The buyers buy it, but the users are not incentivized to use it. They have inertia, friction, or they're too complicated to do that. And we are a vertical SaaS company in education, right? And our end users, an archetype is a 35-40-year-old woman who's an admission executive or a counselor expert, who coaches the kid for his career options. He uses my product today, or he uses my product today, uh, for the lack of better word. And we wanted them to feel empowered, because these software are sold to head of marketing, head of growth, head of enrollments. These are the economic buyers, but they only look at analytics and dashboards. They are not users of the product. And we found that if we really need to make sure that they love the product, we need to also create a long-term training program for their own careers. And this is not a new concept. This has been championed by companies like HubSpot, by Freshworks. The enterprise SaaS companies like Gainsight and Totango have a whole tutorial build out of it, and what they call academies. And we did not have a name to it, but we started to teach and train them to become what we call ExtraaEdge certified counselors. And this goes like a Oracle or I would say a MongoDB certification that goes on their CV, where they could take it anywhere, that they're certified not only on the product, but onto the profession of counseling, to it. And we tied up with one of the other edtech companies called Career Guide, run by another great edtech founder, Surabhi, who also coaches the counselors to become professionally ready. And now we have gone ahead, and we have trained near about 2,500, 3,000 odd counselors today, and we'll go ahead and train around 10,000 in the next couple of years. And you
Wow.
imagine that, you imagine they evangelize, they get trained, but leave that Varun aside for a second, right? Think about it, that a profession which is not celebrated that much, right, that profession also needs to be upskilled, and they also need to have a high self-worth. I mean, we champion, I mean, celebrate programmers, data scientists, digital marketer guys. Who champions counselors, right? But they are the 80% people, around 13-14,000 enterprise users who use ExtraaEdge 4 hours a day, right? We started to look at them, and we started to train them, coach them, guide them, and we created a certification program out of them. It's very popular. Our customer success team delivers it today. And if you go to our website, we say that we are loved by our 300 odd customers. There's a hard sign there. It's not a just a mimic there, or a thing, that we really believe in that, and our actions kind of demonstrate that if they become successful in their career, other things will follow onto it, and but then we really need to help them empower in their career. And that's where this training programs comes into picture. It's a very successful training program. We're going to double down. That leads to a lot of referrals, Varun, by the way, as a second order. But it was not done with that intention. I'll tell you, it was done with the intention of that, once we teach them the tenets of marketing and counseling, they will be doing better at the job. Hence, they will be able to use the product better. It was done with that intention from adoption point of view. But it has
couple
also
of
technical aspects. Yeah.
couple of things you're doing really right over here. One, you're making the hero out of your customer. And believe me, every job or role is mostly just people feel like a cog in the wheel, like they'd feel irrelevant. And someone needs to bring certain level of relevance to their job role. And if you get an opportunity to be that one, then that's great. Which is why you see in Dreamforce, for example, customer photographs plastered all over the stadiums that they tend to host talks on. This is why you see other companies, American companies, tend to make kind of invest a lot in this and make heroes out of their customer. The second thing that you're doing, interestingly, separate the referral marketing out of this. Just the certification piece is that you're coming across as a thought leader, and there's a certain sense of IKEA effect at play over here, where when even if the deal's not closing, and the person has some time on their hands and they want to upskill themselves, everyone wants to grow in their career, and they invest time into the certification. There's a sense of debt that one, they feel very satisfied that they've invested. And then there's the other thing where the other psychological trick that you're putting in is there's a certain sense, even though that might not be the intention, I would just like to carve that out, but just on the way the human psychology works, is that there's a certain sense of debt that you put on that person. And they have this feeling that they want to pay it back. Your referrals are not just because they like the product, but it's an attempt to pay that debt back, which is why Diwali gifts are so powerful. People tend to think, oh, this is more of a celebration of the festival. No, it's a very good way of putting debt on the person, which is why you see a lot of folks going on to government officials and giving them fancy Diwali gifts, because the government official then tends to think that they have to pay that back. And how do they pay that back? They kind of like do some favors. And the same goes on for any of the other professional relationships where these Diwali gifts are exchanged. It's a debt which is put on that person, which needs to be paid. And we humans psychologically are just wired to do that. We are wired to kind of clear that debt.
Yeah, I mean, that's Robert Cialdini reciprocity,
Yes,
right? I
yes,
mean, that's the first thing he talks about
yes.
in terms of
I think he uses the Hare Rama Hare Krishna story where
correct,
they
correct.
tend to put in the
Very,
flower. Yeah.
yeah. So I think you are absolutely right, and that is the intention. And also it allows us to separate between who are economic buyers and who are end users. So sales is focused on the economic buyer, but the customer success function is incentivized to champion the end user, and make sure that her life is successful in the product and outside the product, in her own industry and area where we are in. And also, Varun, there's also a thing that I realized in the hindsight, that you get to be seen as a part of education industry. So today I am not seen only as a software company, and this is same that I hear from somebody like Alma Base, right? That they are seen as a part of the alumni giving back in US in the universities. And I am today in India. Abhi Ballabh is not seen as a co-founder of ExtraaEdge. He's also seen as a part of a education industry and a bigger fraternity, because he speaks about education trends and what's happening in the part of thing. So now I'm one of them. I'm not an outsider guy who's sitting outside and looking at them and helping them. I'm one of them inside, and I'm part of that industry today.
So I tend to believe that marketing initiatives tend to stack. And I very routinely give this analogy of dominoes having to fall in the prospect's journey before they convert into a customer. And just as a refresher for the audience, imagine your prospect's journey where they become aware of your brand, and eventually that closes and they become an advocate. In between this journey are different inflection points. One inflection point is when the prospect signs up for a trial. One is when they agree for a demo. One is when they buy the product and sign up, and then there's onboarding. So these are all inflection points in the prospect's journey. And across these inflection points are a bunch of dominoes, and there's a minimum threshold of dominoes that have to fall before that inflection point hits. So for example, if a prospect comes onto your website, and one of the dominoes that has to hit is of that of social proof. You can deliver that using testimonials, you can deliver that using video recordings or your industry certifications. The other domino that has to fall before they feel they can trust you is maybe a face behind the organization. So, but there's a minimum threshold. So there might be like 10 dominoes that have to fall, and your options, the number of dominoes that are available to you are around 50. And you have to stack these up across the journey to be a successful organization. And that's what you're doing. You have founder marketing at play. You have this academy. You are doing great in SEO. And then you've moved on from being a sales led to a marketing led, and you're investing on demand gen. Plus, you have this academy piece, which is doing certification, and then webinars where you're driving a lot of those registrations. So indirectly, you might see I have 5x my revenue and think, okay, it's because of SGx. But let me tell you, it's because of the stacking that you've done. So marketing as a function is not just a cadence based experiment driven function, as you said. It also requires stacking of these experiments, which are successful, to drive continuous growth. And that's what you've done over here very well. Some which are not emulated, and I personally feel should be emulated. The academy piece and the founder marketing piece, I feel more Indian SaaS companies should be doing that. But great work on that, Abhi. Before we always end these sessions, we have to close ceremonially with a rapid fire round by Arvind. So, Arvind, I hope you're prepared with your questions. We have had some video issues, so that's why you haven't heard from Arvind from the midpoint of this episode. Video and audio issues, but hopefully that's been resolved. Arvind.
So before Arvind goes for it, Varun, one of the things that yeah, one of the things quickly I would like to mention is that the thing you said about marketing and stacking of the things, right? One of the things I recently read, and we keep on talking in our marketing team, is that whenever you switch a product from a product A to B, right, there is an excite there's a pull and push. The pull and push is towards the pull is basically from issues of your existing product, and the pull is towards the novelty of a new product. And then there is anxiety and fear of allegiance towards existing product, and the fear of change that you need to train your people again. And the job of the marketing should be to remove that anxiety and that and that fear, and that's how messaging should try to remove that. And the job of sales should be to accelerate that pull and push. That's a
Very
very
nicely said.
beautiful way of thinking about marketing, from a buyer's changing from a product A to your product, of a pull, push, anxiety, and deep rooted fears. So, and that's exactly, if you're trying to map your marketing based on removing those fear in a messaging positioning, and in your dominoes falling, every fear getting resolved, something that in positioning we spoke about in SGx also a lot. I think I just wanted to point out on that. That's a very good way
Yeah,
of
very
thinking.
nicely said, Abhi. Hey folks, so we're still running into audio and visual issues with Arvind, so you'll not get to hear his rapid fire round. Unfortunately, or fortunately, we don't know. Depends on the perspective. Uh, but this was a cracker of an episode, Abhi. A lot of interesting insights for me as well. And this is why we do this. There's so many good marketing stories. A lot of people have these initiatives and successful marketing initiatives out of India, which needs to be emulated. And we like to bring these behind the scenes stories out to the wider SaaS audience. So please do like and subscribe. It gets us going. This is why it's all a pro bono initiative. We love to do this. We want this marketing function in this country to grow. So please like and subscribe and share your feedback over on Twitter. would love to hear from the audience on what we should do better, and any other interesting anecdotes that you found out from this episode. Please do share those on Twitter as well. Abhi, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Varun and Arvind, for having me here. And I would just end with a thought and saying to you is that uh, you know the founder in itself should be a student of marketing. I personally believe in that. I'm not espousing that as a recommendation, but I'm saying is that really helps, because if you are yourself a student of marketing, and marketing is such an evolving science, it's changing every day. Your team also sees you as a learner, and they start to emulate your own habits, and they also start to become a practitioner of marketing. So this is something that I would say that founder being a student of marketing is a very, very important way of thinking about building a growth led organization. So with that, I really appreciate you both having me here. and uh,
Thanks, Abhi.
and
And I'll
Arvind,
say thank you on behalf of Arvind as well, because the moment he unmutes himself, there's going to be crazy echo.
Arvind, we are going to kind of crack some jokes around it for the next quarter. Please bear with us. So
Blame it on his IT person. Thanks, Abhi. Was
thanks for
great having you over. Thanks, Arvind.
thank you.